4 years ago, I quit my job to pursue my long-held dream of becoming an entrepreneur. Doing my own thing, financial freedom, status, the whole shebang. But in a couple of weeks, I might go back to a regular 9 to 5. And for months, I've been carrying that around like a dirty little secret, like a confession. Proof that I tried, it didn't work, and now I'm crawling back like a failure. That's the story I was telling myself. But I think it's exactly backwards. See this? Stretch it far enough, and the smallest extra pull. The tiniest tug, and it just snaps, okay? And that's not a flaw in the rubber band. It didn't get weak, okay? It just ran out of give, okay? And I want to talk to you about the one variable nobody factors in when they talk about playing the long game, about patience, about just think long term. Because here's what I figured out the hard way. Patience is not a personality, okay? It's a position. I'm sure we've all heard things like, the marshmallow test, delayed gratification, take the hill, not the easy path. The people who can wait win. And it's true. It's just kind of useless, okay? Because it treats patience like a character trait. Like some people are born with it and some aren't. And if you just be a little more disciplined, you'd make the long-term choice every time. But think about your own life. When do you make the dumb short-term decision? The panic move. The thing you know is going to cost you later. It's never when you're calm and full and rested. It's when you're cornered. When rent's due. When the runway's almost gone. When you've got nothing left to give, okay? That's the thing. The first thing that snaps when your life gets stretched tight. It isn't your willpower. It's your patience. And you don't become a worse person in that moment. You just ran out of margin, okay? Because there's no such thing as infinite patience for us mere mortals, okay? And here's where it gets genuinely cruel. Because it's worse than just running low and making one bad call. There's this study I can't stop thinking about. Researchers in India studied sugarcane farmers. And sugarcane farmers, well, they get paid once a year, at harvest. So the same farmer is genuinely poor right before the harvest, and then flush with cash right after. Same guy, same fields, a few weeks apart. And they gave them cognitive tests, okay? Like basically IQ and focus tests. Before the harvest, when they were broke, and after, when they had that huge influx. A year's worth of money. When they were broke, they scored dramatically worse. We're talking the equivalent of 9 or 10 IQ points. And related research on financial stress puts that kind of hit somewhere around losing a full night of sleep. And let that land, okay? Being short on money didn't just shrink their options. It made them measurably dumber. The same person, because scarcity isn't only an empty bank account. It's a process running in the background of your mind the whole time, eating up your whole attention, okay? How do I make rent? How do I cover this? What if this or that? And it's loud. It crowds everything else out. So you've got less bandwidth left for exactly the kind of slow, careful, long-term thinking that will get you out. You see the trap, right? It's a loop. Being short on margin makes you worse at the thinking that builds margin, which keeps you short, which keeps you worse. And this is the part that took me way too long to get. You cannot outdiscipline this. Trust me. When it comes to being delusional about what you can do with just an unbreakable iron will, I score at the very top. I mean, it's really beyond nasty, okay? Like delusional level delusional, okay? But you can't just power your way out of a bandwidth problem. The harder you grip, the more you're just burning the little bit you had left. It's a system running you. Simple as that. And you don't beat a system by trying harder. You beat it by changing the conditions. And now, before you think of all the people you look up to, the Hormozis, the Elons, yes, they made it to the other side without drowning midway. But the reality is, they didn't just have a few valleys here and there that they had to go through. No, they not only looked into the abyss, they went deep into it, okay? Like really pitch black darkness. And here's the part people skip. Surviving that kind of darkness is almost never just grit, okay? There's usually something underneath that lets you stay down there. Like savings, a partner, a backer, a business still throwing off a little cash. Some source of margin. Take that away and even the toughest person snaps, okay? The patience you admire was real, but it was also funded. You've probably heard the adage, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. So true. I think it perfectly captures the reality of building something worthwhile. But if everybody talks about playing long-term games, thinking in decades, why is it that only so few and far between are actually doing it, sitting there calm, while everyone around you is panicking, forced to sell, forced to quit, forced to take the bad deal just to survive? That's rare. Almost no one can afford it. And if almost nobody has that margin for that endurance, and then almost nobody can actually play the long game. Which means if you can build even a little margin, you walk onto a field with barely any other players on it. And the compounding, the thing everyone actually wants, well, it only ever pays out at the very end. And only for the people who could afford to stay in the whole time. So patience isn't a moral high ground we pretend it is, okay? It's an advantage. And like any advantage, you can build it on purpose. And this is the part where I have to be brutally honest about where we actually are. Because right now, in 2026, there's this whole wave of creators, people who went full-time on content and making money online, quit their jobs, bet everything, quietly going back to 9-to-5s. It's almost a genre on YouTube at the moment. Why I'm going back to a normal job. And it's easy to dunk on that. But look at the real numbers. Something like half of all creators make under 15 grand a year. And well over half of full-time creators earn below a living wage. The math is brutal for almost everyone in this. So we're not so special. We're one of those people. Short version of our story, 4 years ago my brother and I, we quit our good corporate jobs. Went all in on a robotic startup. Automation, basically a big hardware moonshot. 2 years of naivety. The timing and the market just weren't there, so we stopped. Then we partnered with an e-com brand, tripled their revenue in 6 months, and got completely burned when it came to getting our fair piece of the pie. And now this, the channel, which we love. But a year in, we're still small, still pre-breakthrough. It has not paid out on anything close to the timeline we had in mind. Because real progress almost never runs on the straight line you imagine. It runs on a curve, and the early part of that curve looks flat. And that flat part is exactly where it messes with you. So here's the fork we're actually standing at. And here's what I finally understand. The thing that kills people like us, founders, creators, anyone betting on something slow, it's not failure per se. It's desperation. A desperate person makes panicked short-term moves, takes the bad deal, quits the right thing at the worst possible moment. Just snaps. So the move that removes the desperation is the move that protects the long game. Going back to 9-to-5s isn't us quitting the dream. It's buying back margin. It's putting the dream on simmer. Low heat, still alive, still warm, instead of standing over it with empty pockets and a stopwatch, making every decision out of fear. A retreat that buys you margin isn't surrender. It's a tactic. Now, I want to be careful here because this cuts both ways. Margin can become its own trap. Get too comfortable, full cushion, zero pressure, nothing forcing your hand, and you can just sit there forever, marinating, telling yourself you're being patient when really you're just comfortable. I've watched people use "I'm playing the long game" as the most sophisticated excuse on earth for never shipping anything. A highway running at 100% capacity doesn't move faster. It gridlocks, okay? But a totally empty highway isn't winning either. It's just, unused road and potential. So this isn't maximize your margin. It's calibrated. Built enough that you can think clearly, take a punch, stop deciding from fear. Not so much that you go soft and the fire goes out. Margin isn't the goal. It's fuel. You build it so you can spend it on the thing that actually matters. The point was never to be safe. The point was to think straight, long enough to take a real shot. So if you're stuck right now, if you keep making short-term moves you're not proud of, if you can't seem to stay patient long enough for anything to compound, maybe ease up on beating yourself about discipline. You might not have a willpower problem. You might have a margin problem. And that's good news, because a personality feels fixed. A position you can move. You can create the conditions where patience is possible. And then it stops taking so much force. That's the whole thing we're obsessed with on this channel. Design the life instead of gritting your teeth through it. And we're figuring this out in real time. We're early. You might be too. So if this resonated, my brother made a video about how to juggle several big things at once without burning out, by giving one your full push and letting the rest simmer on low. It's the same idea, zoomed out, because putting the dream on simmer is not just something you do when you're cornered. It's a way of running your whole life. And go watch that next. We'll see you on the next one.